The chests of the figures rushing him split open with a rip as the finishing cut of a sword technique struck and blood sprayed. Yet even as their bodies split and they died, the ones charging him did not let out a single scream. Nor did he, San Woo-jin, who made them that way, feel any joy. If anything, bloody tears of grief streamed down his face, because they were not enemies at all, but his own household, the retainers of the Sanwoo clan, his family, his friends, his subordinates. The blood demon cult's demon head, Dudang, the very fiend who turned the Seonwoo clan's people into puppets and drove them to attack, mocked him for claiming to be the head of the Seonwoo clan, yet using sword arts that don't belong to him. He laughs and wonders if perhaps Seonwoo Jin has forgotten the famed 13 swords of Seonwoo despite being the clan patriarch. Beside him stood Sonwoo Gi, Sonwoo Jin's younger brother and the previous head of the Seonwoo clan, blank-faced and rigid, a puppet of Dudang, and he wasn't the only one. Clicking his tongue, Dudang looked over the dazed Sonwoo family before deciding on whom he would force Sonwoo Jin to kill next. There she was. Sonwoo Jin's little sister, Yeonha, the one who had stayed by his side to the end in force. She was slowly walking past the blood demon cultists, approaching him. In her hand was White Heron, the cherished sword Sonwoo Jin had gifted her. He glanced around on impulse. Dudang had lined up the Seonwoo clan's people he'd turned into puppets, showing them off to Sonwoo Jin. There was no hope left. He squeezed his eyes shut and apologized to his captain. It seems Sonwoo Jin could never become like you after all. Suddenly, the face of Gale Wind Flying Dragon Sol Pung, his captain and benefactor, floated up, and the words he once gave Seonwoo Jin echoed in his ears. Whenever I was in despair, he would always smile and say this to me. Jin, are you feeling bad about yourself again? As I've always said, you already did the best you could. That's enough. The outcome isn't your responsibility, so keep your head up. Sonwoo Jin's eyes flashed open again. Strength had returned to his gaze. His captain always said this: you don't become a loser just because you can't win. Do what you can until the very last moment. If you don't give up until the end, even in defeat, you are no loser. Sonwoo Jin knew now he was right. He would not be able to beat them today. And of course, Seonwoo Jin would not survive. But there was still something he could do, something he had to do. If he were captured like this, his body would also become Dudang's puppet, just like his family. And one day, Dudang would try to repeat what he did to Sonwoo Jin here today, on his captain as well. Sonwoo Jin could not allow that. The thought that his existence would become a burden to his captain and his friends was unbearable. If he must die anyway, then he will die cleanly by his own will. Seonwoo Jin resolved himself, reversed his grip, and raised his sword to his chest. The Scarlet Lotus sword, the symbol of the Seonwoo clan's head, pointed at his heart, and at last the smile vanished from Dudang's face as he asked in a panic what Seonwoo Jin was doing. It seemed that this time I had made the right choice as well. Grinning fiercely, I told him, Dudang can kill him, but you won't use his corpse. That, even as a ghost, Sonwoo Jin will find a way to kill him. The instant he finished speaking, the tip of the sword pierced his heart. A pain like fire searing his chest lanced through his whole body. Yet even as his mind blurred, a strange calm settled in. The Scarlet Lotus sword, a sacred blade in the long history of the Seonwoo clan, had pierced his heart. Dudang would not be able to use Sonwoo Jin's corpse. Regret washed over him. If Seonwoo Jin had known this was how he would end, he would have lived a little harder. He wouldn't have run away and made excuses about not wanting to fight his brothers, and he would have lived up to his potential, just a little more. In the haze, a piercing scream of his name stabbed Seonwoo Jin ears. A middle-aged man standing on the dais before him roared in a voice like fire. His father, Sonwoo Jung, head of the Sonwoo clan, asked if Sonwoo Jin had anything to say for himself. He had nothing to say. Not because he lacked excuses, but because this situation was too absurd for words. He had last seen his father 10 years ago and then never again. Yet there he was, scolding Sonwoo Jin. He opens his mouth to speak, but pauses as the sound of his own voice startles him. Huh? It sounded different. He looked down at his bound hands on an impulse. They were plump, like the paws of a fat bear. Huh? They were the hands Sonwoo Jin thought he had left forever behind after slimming down. His father asks him if his silence means he admits to killing the Dan family's third young master. the man who was to be his brother-in-law. Son Woo-jin was baffled at what he was hearing. Killing his brother-in-law? Dan Ha-song had been his only friend, but he died more than 10 years ago. That day had been chaotic because the two of them had drunk so much together, and he had woken up to find Dan Ha-song with a sword stuck in his back and Son Woo-jin the only one in the room with the body. But he had neither the motive nor the capability to kill him. Somehow, Son Woo-jin came back to the day he was framed for killing his best friend. Taking a deep breath, he finally answered his father. He claimed that he didn't remember if he had killed him. Naturally, that answer only poured oil on Son Woo-jung's rage. In fury, he shouted at Son Woo-jin to give him a proper answer. Otherwise, how is he, the one responsible for Son Woo-jin, to repent to the head of the Dan clan? Should he kill Son Woo-jin and send his corpse to him? Then, young men standing beside Son Woo-jung, Son Woo-jin's brothers, laughed in disbelief and spoke. His eldest brother, Son Woo-seong, suggests that they cripple him and send him to the Dan clan so they can take out their grief on him. While second brother Son Woo-hyuk says that they could just kick him out and the Dan clan would take care of it then. But the youngest, Son Woo-gi, soon jumps in and talks about how they could send him to the front lines because the alliance has been requesting that they send a son of direct lineage anyway. He tells their father that since Son Woo-jin will die anyway, why not make good use of him? Son Woo-jin couldn't help but criticize him. It was rather funny that he thought that they too wouldn't have to eventually go to war. The front meant the border facing the blood demon cult that had seized Yunnan province. More than 10 years ago, the blood demon cult toppled Diankang, one of the 9 great sects in Yunnan, and tried to break into the Central Plains. Back then, the Martial Alliance formed a punitive army and clashed with them head-on, the Great Righteous Blood War. After a grueling battle in which the Alliance leader at the time died, the Alliance barely managed to block the cult's advance into the Central Plains. But there was nothing to be done about Yunnan, which they already held. Yunnan, once Diankang's domain, became the blood demon cult's territory. After that, the Martial Alliance gathered spirited martial men near Yunnan to watch for a push into the heartland, and people called that line the Blood Demon Front. As time passed, what had begun as a place where gallant martial men scrambled to volunteer for had withered into a place that was only dangerous and offered neither fame nor benefit. It became somewhere that could only be maintained by forcing sects to supply men. For that reason, the sects of Guizhou under the Martial Alliance were now obligated to send one direct line member to Yunnan's Blood Demon Front. Their Xianwu clan was no different. Originally, the one chosen should be one of his brothers who was skilled in martial arts and not him, who is weak. But because of this situation, they have a reason to send him there. There is probably no better outcome for them, and Son Woo-jin can only assume that one of them schemed this whole thing. In the end, his father decides to send Son Woo-jin to the battlefield. It was the same conclusion he had come to in Son Woo-jin's memories back when he was actually 21. After that, he was thrown into the dungeon. He knew 2 people would come to visit him tonight, and from one of them, he plans to obtain something. One of the 2 was already approaching carefully. Yeonha, his kind little sister, the only sanctuary in a home that was a constant bed of thorns. She called out to him and asked him with concern if he, in her voice, if he was all right. He smiled gently and answered that he was fine, but he wondered how she was doing. Son Woo-yeonha tells him that she is perfectly fine and that she believes that he is not the culprit. Back then, she said the same. At the time, Son Woo-jin only wept and kept saying thank you, but he could say it with confidence. You are right, he tells Yeonha. Your brother isn't the culprit, Son Woo-jin says with confidence. Yeonha looked startled. She wonders why he is so certain. He tells her he had no reason to kill his friend and her fiancée. More importantly, the 2 of them had been sitting across from each other, but the sword Son Woo-jin never took with him was stabbed into Dan Ha-sang's back. She nervously asks him why he hadn't said any of this to their father. Son Woo-jin tells her that he thought that going to the battlefield would be for the best. Among the Son Woo brothers, he alone had no mother. She died when Son Woo-jin was very young, but that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that he had no powerful maternal family behind him. As a child, thanks to his remarkable memory, he made a name as a prodigy. And from then on, he had to realize the more he showed his ability, the more he would be hated, and the shorter his life would be. The cold gazes of his brother's mothers, the tightening, suffocating pressure. Even as a child, he could feel them all too well. So he had no choice but to choose to hide my ability and become a fool. But one day, while pretending to be a fool, Son Woo-jin suddenly realized he had truly become a fool. Trying to appear lazy, he became truly lazy. Trying to look like he did nothing but play, he ended up learning nothing at all. Even as they called him the shame of the Sonwoo clan, he grinned like an idiot, forever chasing wine and women and ruining himself. In order to change, Son Woo-jin must leave, and met him who would be on the battlefield his role model, the berserk tempest soaring dragon, Seol Pung. When Yeonha heard that he had deliberately taken the blame to go to the front, she looked a little flustered and left. It felt strangely different from his memory, where she had comforted him. He wonders if it was because he wasn't crying this time. It left him unsettled. He was lost in thought when it happened. The second visitor he had been waiting for arrived. It was much earlier than he had expected. Startled by the silent descent of the figure from the roof, Son Woo-jin cried out to his father. Son Woo-jung was staring at him with a heavy expression. What is this? Even his father feels different from the last time? Was it because Son Woo-jin had changed? Both the time of his visit and the way he looked at Son Woo-jin were entirely different from his memory. Back then, Son Woo-jung had come with a resigned expression and asked if he had any last requests. And Seon Woo-jin, pathetically, had asked if his father would let him escape. His father had sighed, shaken his head, and left. But now, this heavy expression, this silent gaze, was nothing like before. As Son Woo-jin looked at him nervously, his father finally opened his mouth in a heavy tone and asked if he truly had been framed. Seon Woo-jin discovered that Son Woo-jung must have been listening to his conversation with Yeonha. That must mean he had also done that in the past. His father admits to knowing that Son Woo-jin was pretending to be dumb, but he had no idea that his son wanted to leave the household. If he had known earlier, his father stopped speaking. His father's face was filled with deep regret. It was such an unexpected expression that Son Woo-jin was thrown off. And then he said something. Son Woo-jin had never imagined he would hear from him. Son Woo-jung apologized to him for running his life. What was this? What was happening? All this time, his father had completely neglected him. His father never stopped him from doing as he pleased, but neither had he protected him from his brothers and their mothers when they tormented him. Because of that, Son Woo-jin had been utterly isolated in the clan, and he had deeply resented his father for it. But now, what was this? Could it be? An image he had never considered in his past life began to piece itself together in his mind. The maternal families of his three brothers held immense influence within the clan. Even his father, as clan head, had to constantly negotiate with them. So if he openly favored one of them, he would lose the ability to restrain the other maternal families? Was that why he neglected everyone? And why, having no maternal backing, Son Woo-jin had no one to protect him? No. Was neglecting Son Woo-jin actually his way of protecting him? Seon Woo-jung then asks if there is anything that he would like to ask of him. Son Woo-jin suddenly came to his senses. Whatever his father's true intentions were, he could not miss this long-awaited chance. Son Woo-jin swallowed hard and spoke in a solemn tone, asking to be let into the patriarch's library just for a day. His father asks him why. Seon Woo-jin explains that he doesn't know the clan's martial arts and that he wanted to learn at least a little bit before he had to go to the battlefield. That had been one of his greatest regrets in his past life. When his brothers were all dead or missing, he was pushed into becoming clan head, but because of his indulgent past, he had never learned a shred of the Seonwoo clan's martial arts. So when he went to the Yunnan front, he had to painfully scrape up martial arts from scratch, even stealing techniques from others, just to survive. That was why, if he could master the clan's supreme technique, the Seonwoo 13 swords, he could rise far faster than before. At least it would be better than secretly mimicking others' techniques, as in his past life. His father asked with a complicated expression, if he thinks he can learn martial arts in only a day by reading books. Son Woo-jin tells him he believes it is better than not trying at all. After a moment of thought, Father nodded and said that he would allow it. Son Woo-jin almost shouted in triumph, clenching his fist. At last, he could remedy one of the greatest regrets of my past life. But Father was not finished. He said something else Son Woo-jin had never imagined. He tells him that cultivating inner energy alone is dangerous. So he will teach Son Woo-jin himself. He orders him to sit cross-legged. Flustered, Son Woo-jin sat at once. Then warmth spread into him from the palm on his back, guiding him. His father says that what he teaches him is the ultimate primordial unity arts. He will recite the formulas a few times, so Son Woo-jin should listen well and memorize them. In the beginning, there was yin and yang, and then there was chaos. Son Woo-jin was so shocked he nearly cried out. It was the inner cultivation art that only the clan head and heir could learn. Father was teaching me the Sonwoo clan's ultimate secret. It should have filled me with joy and excitement for new power. But strangely, it was the warmth of his palm on my back that moved me more. So warm, the warmest feeling he had ever received from family in his entire life. The next day, Son Woo-jin was allowed into the clan head's private library. Though his brothers protested furiously, Father dismissed them, saying it would dishonor the clan if Son Woo-jin died on the front knowing nothing. So, for the first time in 2 lives, Son Woo-jin entered the private library. Cracking my knuckles with a sly grin, one day was more than enough.